Did you know that humans can train their eyes to see clearly underwater without goggles? It's true, and the Moken sea nomads have been doing it for centuries. Their underwater vision is twice as sharp as ours. But here's the real shocker. You could learn to do it too. Stick around and I'll show you how the Moken's eyes adapt underwater, constricting their pupils to just 1.96 millimeters. That's smaller than a pinhead. We'll explore how this tiny change makes a world of difference and how you might be able to unlock this hidden superpower yourself. Imagine diving into crystal clear waters, your eyes wide open, taking in every detail of the underwater world around you. No goggles, no special equipment, just you and the sea. Sounds impossible, right? Well, for the Moken people, this is just another regular day. The Moken, often called sea gypsies, are a nomadic group living in the archipelago of Burma and along the west coast of Thailand. These folks aren't your typical beachgoers. They're sea people through and through, spending most of their lives on or in the water. Moken children, as young as 8 or 9, diving deep into the ocean without a care in the world. No masks, no goggles, just their bare eyes. They're not just splashing around for fun though. These kids are on a mission, hunting for clams, sea cucumbers, and other underwater treasures that make up their daily meals. It's like they've got built-in goggles. If you've ever tried opening your eyes underwater, you know it's a blurry mess. That's because our cornea, which does most of the work bending light, becomes useless underwater. Light isn't focused properly, making everything look distorted, like trying to read through a foggy bathroom mirror. For the Moken, this isn't just a cool trick, it's survival. Spotting fish quickly determines whether they eat or go hungry. Here's where it gets really interesting. Scientists decided to put the Moken's underwater vision to the test. They compared how well Moken children could see underwater versus European children who were used to swimming but not diving without goggles. The results? Mind-blowing. The Moken kids could see twice as clearly underwater as their European counterparts. Twice as clearly! That's like having 20/20 vision while the rest of us are squinting through foggy glasses. But how do they do it? What's their secret? Well, that's where things get even more fascinating. It turns out the Moken have developed a special ability to change the shape of their eyes underwater. They can constrict their pupils to tiny pinpoints and reshape their eye lenses, just like a camera adjusting its focus. This allows them to counteract the refraction of light in water, giving them that crystal clear vision. Think about it. These people have lived by and off the sea for thousands of years. Generation after generation, they've honed this skill, passing it down to their children. It's not just a neat trick, it's a testament to the incredible adaptability of the human body. And here's the kicker. Anyone can learn this skill. Studies show that with practice, our eyes can adapt just like the Mokens. On land, our eyes work like a well-oiled machine. Light enters through the cornea, that clear front part of your eye, then travels through your pupil and lens before hitting the retina at the back. Your brain takes that information and boom, you've got vision. Pretty neat, right? Think of it this way. Your eyes are like a camera that's perfectly set up for taking pictures on land. Dunk that camera underwater without any special casing, and you'll end up with some pretty blurry shots. That's essentially what's happening to your eyes when you open them underwater. Now, here's where things get wild. Remember how we said the Moken can see clearly underwater? Well, they're not using any fancy equipment. They're using the same eyes you and I have. They're just using them differently. The secret lies in something called accommodation. It's how your eyes adjust focus, like the autofocus on a camera. When we go underwater, our pupils usually get bigger. It's an automatic reflex. But bigger pupils underwater actually make things blurrier. The Moken? They've learned to do the opposite. Moken children can shrink their pupils down to tiny pinpoints. We're talking smaller than a pinhead. This acts like a natural aperture, letting in just the right amount of light and sharpening their underwater vision. But that's not all. They also change the shape of their eye lenses, just like adjusting the focus on a camera lens. The result? A level of underwater vision that feels almost superhuman, far beyond what the rest of us experience when we open our eyes beneath the waves. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's great for the Moken, but what about the rest of us? Here's the kicker. This isn't some genetic superpower. As we mentioned before, it's a learned skill. Think about it. The Moken have lived by and off the sea for thousands of years. They've honed this skill over generations out of necessity. But here's something even more mind-blowing. While Moken children are pros at this underwater vision thing, their adults seem to lose the ability over time. Scientists think it might be because our eye lenses get less flexible as we age. It's like how it gets harder to read small print as you get older. All right, let's dive deeper into this underwater mystery. You might be thinking, surely the Moken must have some special genes that give them this superpower, right? Well, that's exactly what scientists thought at first. I mean, it makes sense. If you've got a group of people who can see clearly underwater without goggles, you'd probably assume they were born with some kind of fishy advantage. But it really isn't like that. Back in 1999, a team of researchers decided to take a closer look at the Moken's eyes. They were on a mission to find out if these sea nomads had some unique eye structure that the rest of us landlubbers were missing out on. Maybe their corneas were flatter, or their lenses were stronger. It was like they were searching for the X-Men gene of underwater vision. When they compared the Moken kids' eyes to the European children's eyes on land, guess what they found? Absolutely nothing. Nada. Zip. The Moken eyes were structurally identical to the European eyes. No special adaptations, no fishy features, nothing that screamed underwater superpower on paper. They learned to use their eyes in a way that most of us never even considered possible. It's like finding out that you've had a superpower hiding in your toolbox all along, but you just never knew how to use it. So, if it's not genetics, what's their secret? Well, remember how we talked about accommodation earlier? That's the key. The Moken have learned to control their eye muscles in a way that changes the shape of their lenses underwater. They're basically doing manually what our eyes do automatically on land. But why do Moken adults lose this ability as they age? Is it just the natural aging process, or is there something else at play? As Moken children grow older, their eye lenses become less flexible, and their ability fades, just like how it gets harder to read small print with age. But is that the whole story? Some scientists think there might be more to it. Maybe it's because adults spend less time diving as they take on other responsibilities. The truth is, we're still not entirely sure. Now, most people think underwater vision is all about holding your breath and squinting really hard. But the truth is, it's about training your brain to work with your eyes in a whole new way. The real shock? Both of these ideas miss the mark because the secret lies in something called neuroplasticity. Remember how we talked about flexibility earlier? Well, turns out our brains are pretty flexible too. Our brains adapt to our environment. The Moken's brains have learned to process underwater images differently, just like learning a new language or instrument. And when it comes to vision, your brain is the master sculptor, interpreting all those signals your eyes are sending. The Moken kids aren't born with super eyes. They're born with the same eyes as you and me. But from a young age, they're constantly in and out of the water. Their brains learn to interpret underwater images differently. It's like they've got a built-in Instagram filter for underwater vision. But it's not just the Moken. Scientists have found similar abilities in other sea-dwelling folks, like the Bajau in the Philippines. These people can hold their breath for insane amounts of time and see like fish underwater. And guess what? It's all thanks to their brains adapting to their environment. By the way, we're going to make a video on this topic very soon, so if you are enjoying it and are interested in these topics, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Now, you might be thinking, that's great for them, but what about me? I'm not exactly a sea nomad. Well, here's the good news. Your brain has the same potential for change. It's just that most of us haven't given it the underwater workout it needs. Think about it like this. If you've ever learned a new language or picked up a musical instrument, you've already experienced neuroplasticity in action. Your brain formed new connections, rewired itself a bit, and suddenly you're speaking French or playing the guitar. The same principle applies to underwater vision. If you were forced to live in an environment where you constantly had to go in and out of the water, your brain would understand that it is something necessary for you, and your eyes would gradually develop that ability. But not all is good news. These incredible underwater visionaries, who once ruled the waves with their crystal clear aquatic sight, are now watching their abilities fade away like old photographs. But why? What's changed? Well, let's face it, the world's not the same as it was a few decades ago. The Moken, traditionally hunter-gatherers of the sea, are swapping their boats for houses on stilts. Instead of spending their days diving for clams and hunting fish, many are now working in tourism or taking on other land-based jobs. Well, as they're spending less time in the water, researchers are starting to worry. Less time underwater means less practice for those amazing eye muscles. But it's not just about losing a cool party trick. This change reflects a much bigger issue, the preservation of an entire way of life. The Moken's underwater vision isn't just a neat skill, it's a key part of who they are. It's how they've survived and thrived in their watery world for generations. Losing it is like losing a piece of their identity. So, what's being done about it? Well, researchers aren't just sitting back and watching this amazing ability disappear. They're working hard to document and preserve the Moken's underwater techniques. It's like they're creating a how-to guide for superhuman vision. But it's not just about saving this skill for the Moken. These researchers believe that by understanding how the Moken do what they do, we might unlock secrets about human potential that could benefit all of us. Now, you might be thinking, that's great for science and all, but what does this mean for me? Well, here's the thing. The Moken story isn't just about a group of people on the other side of the world. It's about all of us. It's about human potential and adaptability. It's about the incredible things our bodies and brains can do when we push them to the limits. So, what's the big takeaway from our deep dive into the Moken's underwater world? Well, it's not just about seeing fish more clearly. It's about realizing that our bodies are capable of so much more than we give them credit for. The Moken people remind us that with practice and determination, we can push our limits and unlock hidden abilities we never knew we had. This is Primal Hacks, where the oldest wisdom reveals its best tricks. See you in the next one.